Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I want to help you with some issues that you might be having with soldering iron. I've gotten a lot of comments of soldering iron not picking up solder. So in this video, I want to show you how I care for my soldering iron and what I do during soldering that doesn't cause my solder to drop or my tip to burn. All right, so the first thing that I recommend you guys getting is a soldering iron station with tip cleaner that has rosin flux within it. So the rosin flux acts as a conditioner for your soldering tip. So every time I solder, I always kind of condition that tip as I go, because when I clean my tip, it coats every time. So that's tip number one, getting soldering iron with cleaning station that has a rosin flux. That's tip number one. So tip number two, you actually have to be using this. Every time you're trying to pick up new solder, when you're soldering, you actually have to be using the tip cleaner. Do it every time you need to pick up a new solder. So constantly cleaning it. So tip number three, and it might be contradictory a little bit because I see a lot of people using it, but I never use it, is I'm not ever using wet sponge. I know sometimes people recommend using wet sponge because you can shock your tip and then it will prompt solder to be picked up, but I don't do it. I don't even know where my sponge is. I never had to shock my tip with sponge. And I have a conspiracy theory that maybe because you're shocking it with water, it will prompt your tip to get more rusty faster. I don't use it and it's been working for me just fine. So it's up to you, but I never had to replace tips. I had the same soldering iron and I never use wet sponge ever. That's not a part of my routine, but I know that you're supposed to, but I don't. This is just my personal opinion and it's been working fine for me. Okay, so as you can see here, my tip has this blob, right, on it. And this is from me conditioning the tip. Every time I record a video, I always talk about it, but if you guys are new, so this is one of the main reasons why your tip gets rusted and basically not picking up solder is because it gets oxidized. Every time you work with solder, you expose it to oxygen and whatever chemicals and whatever things that, you know, I don't know because I'm not a specialist in that. But all I know is that without it being conditioned, it gets rusty immediately and you'll have to basically replace a tip. And to avoid that, all you have to do, I'll show you right now, you have to coat your soldering tip with the same solder that you work with. Let me show it to you how. So this is the solder that I use. It's lead-free for jewelry making. Again, if you're making any jewelry, this is not about safety tips, but make sure you use solder that is lead-free because if you're going to be touching it, if you're going to be wearing it, you cannot have lead touching your skin ever, okay? So lead-free solder, way to go. So I'm going to turn on my soldering iron and I'm going to show you how I condition my tip as if I was done soldering and making jewelry. This is basically what I do. Using the same thing that I make rings with, I use the same thing to coat the tip. Let me show you how. Okay, so let's pretend that we've been working and making some jewelry and now we're done working with soldering iron and now we're going to turn it off. And before we store it away, this is what I always do. So right now my soldering iron is on. The way I condition it, this is what I do. I turn it off, okay? And while the tip of the soldering iron is still hot, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of that solder on the tip of my soldering iron, and I'm going to condition it. Like so. You just need a little bit to cover it, and sometimes you can pick up pieces from your working surface like that to cover your tip. So once you're done doing that, all you have to do, store it away. You see it has a coat of solder. It's protecting the tip from oxidation and rust, and it will last for way longer that way. So all you have to do now is just store it away. This is my conditioned tip, and all I do, I store it away. That's it. Another question I always get is about solder dripping and dropping and like your tip not holding solder. So hypothetically, if you do everything that I just mentioned to you, you shouldn't be having any issues. You should be fine. I don't ever have any issues with it dropping and not picking up solder. But sometimes it can be stubborn and I'll show you what I do to like wake solder up whenever I'm trying to, you know, sometimes it's a common thing. You try to pick up some solder and it won't. Let me show you a little secret, little trick that I do that helps activate that solder. Sometimes if my soldering iron is not picking up solder, I would literally scrape the surface. Right now it's picking up a lot of solder, but I would scrape it. Try scraping the solder with your soldering iron whenever it's not picking it up, and you'll see it will pick up solder, I promise. And overall, just try to store your iron away from the bathroom, you know, in a dry place to prevent oxidation of the tip. And if you do encounter oxidation after working on many pieces, getting soldering iron that has replacement tips will be very beneficial, because it's going to be much cheaper to buy tips than buying a whole thing. So those are my tips for you. I hope this helps. Don't use sponge. That's my tip. So yeah, those are my tips. I hope this helps. Please let me know in the comments if you're still having any issues, but you should be fine. If you are conditioning your tip, which is probably #1 reason why it's getting oxidized and not picking up solder, if you are conditioning, then you should be fine. But I think like this is exactly what I do, and I swear I didn't have any issues, and I'm making pieces like every week for 2 years now. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if it did help. I really hope it did, because I know how frustrating it is to make art and then your tool's not working the right way. So I really hope this helps, and let me know in the comments below if it did. Please subscribe to my channel, please comment, please like, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much, guys. Kisses, bye.